One of the greatest gifts you can give to the world is to do your work. Work on yourself. And I can feel a bunch of people out there going, oh my God, I'll work on myself, like, aren't I just good enough the way I am? Yes, you are. You are perfect just the way you are. All you people out there rolling in the world, just doing whatever it is you feel like you need to be doing, you're perfect exactly the way you are. You are. But once you make a choice, to roll in this world in a certain way, whether it's of service to others or service to self, once you make that choice, then it's always about looking at yourself, looking at who you are, looking at, like, asking that question, who am I, Who am I? And even if you haven't made that choice yet, even if you haven't made a choice of how you want to walk in the world, even if you haven't, it's like most of us at our heart and our soul have a desire to be a part of, like, society, to be a part of culture, to be a part of everything, to be a part of civilization, and to feel like the things we do actually have some kind of a meaning in life, right? We all have that desire. It doesn't matter whether we serve ourselves or serve others. We all have a desire to feel like we're contributing some kind of meaning to the world, some kind of meaning to, whether it's to our community, whether it's to the circles we, are a part of, spiritual or otherwise, it doesn't matter. Whether it's a part of our city, whether it's a part of our country, whether it's part of our province or state or wherever it is you live in the world. We all have a desire to feel like we're having some kind of a positive, some kind of a contribution to that, right? And that's colored by how we view the world. It's colored by how we view the world, like what that contribution could, should, and might look like, But the greatest gift you can give is to work on yourself, and that working on yourself is really about getting to know who you are, for real, taking accountability for your actions, no matter what you do, there's always going to be consequences of the results of your actions. So taking accountability for those things is really important, owning that stuff, because until you can own that stuff, you don't really ever know who you are, right? I mean, I guess you could say, I know who I am. And maybe you do. But, if you're rolling through the world and you really want to make a contribution to your community in some way, shape, or form, then it really makes sense to really look at ourselves, really do some work, look at the places where the outcomes of our actions are not matching. Look at the places where we're feeling friction in our lives, feeling like we're rubbing against creation, looking at the places where we're getting feedback from other people out there. And just because you're getting feedback doesn't mean you have to integrate it all, but it's worth going inside and going, is that feedback true, and doing that work on ourselves. And it doesn't have to be tedious. It's fun. At the end of the day, it's fun. Like, figuring out who you are is fun, because then you can try new things on. You can do new things, have new experiences, live in different ways, move to different countries, backpack and live in hostels, whatever it is that you feel like you need to do, or whatever it is you feel like you want to do. That is doing work on yourself. Doing work on yourself is not always about digging into the shit, digging into the dirt. Working on yourself is also experimenting with life, is also having cool, fun, new experiences, because out of those experiences you get to decide, you have a greater sense of who you really are. So, working on yourself is not always about digging in the dirt. It's not always a tedious process. Sometimes it is. But a lot of the times, it's really about getting out there in the world and figuring out who we are. That's really what it's about at the end of the day. So, if you could do one thing today, Look at those things in your life that you love doing. Are there things that you've always wanted to try but never tried? Now's the time.